Okay,
Oh
well,
no. Hi, I'm Michaela.
and you're going to take me over to the exhibit for the first
All
time, so
right.
we're going to see what that looks like. This looks so much nicer in here than what I saw on YouTube. It what I saw on YouTube. I mean, I kind of did someone did a walk around and stuff, and I thought, well, it looks good. There's a lot of stuff there, but it really doesn't do it any justice.
It's a big space with a lot going on.
Yeah, my steelworker friend in Pueblo, Colorado, he's really interested in what's happening here because we work together a lot down in Portland, and then we stayed in touch all these years, and he's still doing the road warrior thing.
Oh, cool! Wow.
Thank you. Okay, this guy here, that's Floyd Pledger,
Nice.
Carol Ford. I don't remember this being one of my pictures.
I don't think this is one of yours.
It isn't.
This is from the PI. Yeah, but this one's you, yeah? That's the one that started it all.
Well, that was the first time I saw them, and I'm like, what is this about?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not one of mine.
No, yeah. We were just like trying to set these three kind of themes to go through. Yeah. So we have a little bit of stuff about like what is the WTO for people who don't know.
That's George Becker.
Mm-hmm.
He was the international president. Let's see if I recognize any of these other guys. See, he had some direct run-ins with Charles Hurwitz and Hurwitz's buddy, Mark Rich.
Okay. So this is where we talk about how people organize to get people to the WTO. So we got one of your pictures here. We talk about the road warriors going up and down the West Coast.
That was in Elk. That was north of Spokane.
Yeah. And then we got one of your pictures here with the Teamsters truck.
Down in Portland.
And then, people were doing these trainings up north. There's a farm where they did like a resistance camp where they trained people how to climb stuff and everything. One of the people I talked to, she said that one of the steel workers participated in that camp also. So she couldn't remember his name.
I went through one of those down in Eagle Creek, southeast of Portland.
Right.
And they were practicing chasing each other through the woods.
Wow.
And they were like deer. And I was like, oh my God, the way they were running, I thought, if these people trip, they are going to kill themselves. I mean, one of them was pretending to be the cops, and the other ones was, and they were just on dead runs. How are they going? They're zigzagging out of those trees. And I was like,
wow.
I had one of those maps.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, and I was looking for it not too long ago. I know a few years back I was looking for it. I found it, and then I think I put it in a safe place, and now I can't find it again.
Was it this big, or is it one
No,
of the
this
smaller
was
versions?
this was just a regular sheet size.
Yeah.
It was an 8x11, and no, actually it was bigger than that. It was the next size up, but it was folded up, and we were given those so that we could kind of have some idea. And that must be one of the training videos.
Yeah, they're practicing being arrested.
That was amazing too, because that one morning we went down it was up north of Pike Street, and there was a big parking lot up there, and some guy was on a bullhorn, and he was going, everybody who wants to get arrested, go to that end of the parking lot, everybody who doesn't, go this end, and they were hauling off busloads of people, and I was like, wow.
Wow, that's interesting. Wow. Yeah. So we had some of this stuff from the people who were organizing the conference. so they're kind of like, yay, trade, and then the police planning, they were training on the Seahawks field. They were kind of talking about everybody getting ready for this big event that's coming, even though they didn't have any idea how big it was going to be.
That was such a unnerving feeling, and I saw that in Portland too. And after the May Day thing, when they Y2K didn't happen, and they had a riot control plan for that, so they just decided, let's try it on May Day and see how it works. On May Day, people. And so I got up in front of like 600 people, and the mayor and all the top brass from important PD, and I'm telling them, I don't know where there's such a huge gap between the people and the government has come from this, because the only time we see in Spokane, riot police like things and SWAT is on the TV if somebody has a gun, or it's a bust or something.
Right,
We don't see this in the park downtown.
When we're just like having a march.
I did a call into KBOO radio down there one time about the peace march that was going on, and I told I knew everybody who was on the talk show host or on that panel, and I said, there were no police in the park downtown all day, and I guess the police must have just thought it was redundant to send a bunch of police to a peace rally, and they didn't. And so, yeah.
We wanted to show like all the different groups that were coming together to oppose the WTO from different perspectives.
I have in one of those books a bunch of business cards, and some of them I didn't keep, and now I wish I had, like the Ruckus Society, and we met with them. I don't remember if it was in San Francisco or LA, and some of them were talking about this kind of thing, but some of them at that meeting, it was pretty clear that these people were kind of crazy, and they didn't care what the issue was. They just wanted to go out and trash something. And I'm like, I don't know how to get through to people like that. We need to, but I just really didn't know how.
It's hard, yeah. So then we go into this each day of the protest. So this was the first day. There was this big banner drop.
And that was on the battle in Seattle.
Yeah.
I think they restaged that.
Yeah. Or maybe they had footage. I don't know. It'd be hard to restage it, but maybe they did. I haven't seen that movie in a long time.
Well, in the part in the movie where Ray Liotta's playing the mayor, and they're talking about people going down to where they're not supposed to be, and I thought they were talking about me and John Goodman, and we did. We went down to the ministerial buildings where we weren't supposed to be during the labor march. But in the last steelworker video I sent you about that the steelworkers produced, Leo Gerard, which ended up being the international president, he's bragging about breaking off and going down with the people in the streets.
Yeah.
So that's the first time I saw that, was just recently, and that friend of mine, Joel from Pueblo, sent me that video.
Oh, cool.
And so then I started thinking, well, it was a little bit of all of us, because I think me and John, we went and did what we did because we spent 6 months out on the road getting involved in this, and they tried to turn us away, not a block from there. It was fairly close.
Yeah.
We said, to hell with that. We're going down.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We're going down there.
Totally, yeah. So this orients people with 5 days, and then we go through each day.
Yeah, that's one thing about, it wasn't just the WTO, but other things that we organized where the whole riot police kind of thing went kind of crazy. And I was just like, I don't want to be involved in something if there's a loss of life. And there's times when I thought that was actually going to happen. And on top of everything else, I mean,
So we had the banner drop, and then the march with the turtles, and the steelworkers going down to the dock. So that's one of yours for sure. This might be you too. Yeah, that's you also.
Yeah, you know, and somewhere out in this was Maxine Waters.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I talked with her for a while, and I had these little round steelworker patches. And I told her about the Alliance magazine we were producing, and she had these two great big giant security guys with her. So I had my backpack with my camera and stuff in it, and I unzipped that, and boy, they were just, they're eyeballing that, and I pulled that magazine out, and I told her about, you know, this is what we're doing in California concerning the redwoods. Then I reached and I packed again, and both those guys are, you know, what are you pulling out there? And I pulled out some of those steelworker patches, and I gave her one. Then I gave one to both those security guards. They were like little kids that just got a stick of candy. They had big grins on their faces.
That's sweet. That's a great story.
See, when this started, it was further up the hill.
Yeah.
And we connected with this crowd, and they said, don't go up there. I think it was Queen Anne or something like that, because there was all the gassing going on and stuff. And there was something happening up there where everybody was saying, don't go that way. So anyway, we were running out in front and getting these pictures. And see that guy there?
Yeah.
That's John Goodman.
Okay.
And he's the one that was working directly mostly with Julia Butterfly and on that contract.
Nice.
And so let's see if I can recognize anybody else there. I know that there was other, that right there, you can only see part of his face. That's Dan Sampson.
Okay.
He's kind of looking to the side there.
Yeah.
So, of course, all these blue ponchos, those are steel workers.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is great. You know, I think that, you know, to me, this is, it's you know, it's kind of like the period at the end of the sentence, because it was never finished. I mean, there was so many open things that happened. And even the other day when I called the culture department at the Kalispel tribe, I talked with this lady. I never met her before, and she lived here back then. And the only thing she remembered was the broken windows and the burning dumpsters. And so after I explained it to her more in detail, and then she was glad to hear all of it, and she's helping spread the word to invite Indian country.
Oh, that's great.
So
good. Yeah. I mean, I feel like it just getting people to understand there was all this planning and organization and training, and people coordinated this incredible effort with all these different kinds of activities.
Well, those pictures I have down there, there's that stadium at the Space Needle.
Yeah, Memorial Stadium.
And that's when I really, really realized how big this really was. You know, because we came across people doing organizing at different universities and community centers and whatever throughout all those months. And so I knew other people were doing this. But once when I saw that, and then there were world leaders coming on there and stuff, that's when I realized this is far bigger than I ever imagined, and I'll never know the whole extent of that.
Yeah, for real, it's huge. Yeah, so this is the early morning on the 30th, people marching from Pike Place and from other directions and setting up these blockades in the intersections. That was what really kept the delegates from getting to the conference in the morning. And the police are coming in. I talked to the police captain, and he was like, you know, they had been planning, but they didn't really understand what was going to happen. And he said when he got there and he saw they've built stages, and they're dangling people from tripods and this, and he was just like, okay, you got us.
I've come across stuff like that has just left me beside myself. You know, and the day when we were looking at the steelworkers, you know, in that picture over there, when they came down to the docks, and that's the day when they had the speeches about the foreign steel being dumped and stuff. And when we came up on the north end of Pike Street, you know, everybody was taken away to get up there, because there was, I don't know how many hundreds and hundreds of people. But me and Jan, we came up on the north end of Pike Street, which I think was out this way.
Exactly.
We came up that hill, and all of a sudden we saw this rush of people come around, And we were thinking about going this way, could get something to eat, and they said, "Don't go that way." And I have a picture
Yeah, you
where
showed
in the
me, yeah.
background there's a cloud, and it looks
And you
like
see
steam,
people
but it
kind
was
of coming towards you.
yeah,
I remember that picture. Yeah.
yeah, and that was tear gas, and
Yeah.
they were saying they got old people and little kids. And
Yeah. They started using tear gas at like 9:30 in the morning.
they didn't those people didn't do anything. They were just
Right.
leaving the rally.
Yeah. It really got crazy. Yeah. So these are like these delegates that can't get into the meeting, and people are blocking them. And this group of people, they had these red clown noses on, so they were like trying to block the delegates, but have it be this kind of funny thing instead of confrontational. So that was their strategy. There's like student march that came in from UW and Seattle Central. Students came down Denny. And the Chicano student group was marching. They were Zapatistas in solidarity with the folks in Mexico. And then we kind of show the Teamsters had this crazy dance party sound system that they brought. Do you remember this?
I do, and I don't know why I didn't shoot pictures of that, because I don't think I have any
Someone
pictures.
did.
But yeah, because I was walking down through there, you couldn't hardly see between those buses.
Yeah.
And
they were trying to use them the police were trying to use them as blockades, but it was like, well, okay, we'll use them as blockades, Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then that shows the first use of tear gas was like 10 o'clock in the morning, and the medics are helping people. This kind of early militarized police kind of thing, like it's gotten much worse or more intense since then, but that was kind of shocking for people to see.
Well, there was one march. I can't remember which one it was, but we kind of broke off and we went up on the hill above that, and we saw a whole bunch of this. I mean, it looked like a third world country that was at war, and we were like, oh my God.
Yeah, it was crazy.
And they had a emergency response vehicle, and they called them ERVs.
No.
and when I saw that, I was going to take a picture of it, and this guard
like,
comes
"You
out
can't
there
take
like,
a
what are you doing? And I says, well, my name's Irv, and I want to take it. Well, you're not doing that. Like I was going to here's something that's out in public in the street, but they won't let me take a picture of it. And I thought, well, that's on the paranoid side there.
Yeah,
That's.
Yeah. This is the chief of police who just was totally. He was very conflicted about it all and just kind of did not take charge for various reasons. So it's one of the reasons things were so chaotic was that he just wasn't really managing it.
I got to a point where there was so much that was going on. It wasn't just the WTO, but I went back to my hotel room late one night, and I was just wore to an end. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, you're waiting, for some kind of an end to it, some kind of a normalcy, some kind of that. And for some reason, I thought about that scene in Apocalypse Now, where, there's nighttime, this whole war is going on, it's just going crazy, and Martin Sheen, it was like he realized there isn't anybody in charge.
Yeah.
It just took on a life of its own, and that's when I saw that, I went, oh my God! When I realized that, I was like, this is what's happening here. We keep waiting for something normal to happen, but it's the things that were coming out of the woodwork were just unbelievable.
Yeah. So we were talking about how the media really focused on the property destruction, but that was like a small number of people. It wasn't the vast majority of people were not doing that, and in fact there was kind of conflict among the protesters because some of the peaceful protesters were trying to stop these guys from breaking windows and stuff. There's one person described like they're all like trying to protect Nike Town from these the guys want to break windows, and then they all get tear gassed by the police, and they're like, why am I getting tear gassed to protect Nike Town? Like, this is not what I came here for.
You know, just about every time we got involved in some kind of a march down in Portland, the Nike store got it.
Yeah, I can
Just
imagine.
constant. I mean, it was every time.
That's
I
the
mean,
symbol, yeah.
you know, and we had events down there where we made it very clear to the anarchists, we don't want this going on. This is a peaceful, you know, labor thing or whatever is going on. And then some of them would just, I think some of them were the black bloc kids, and there's a big standoff between them and the police, you know, and the police pick on them and stuff, and so there's like this hate fest going on. So, of course, right away they got to start a fight with the police. Next thing you know, you see the police chasing them through the streets and stuff, and yeah.
Yeah.
That looks like one of my pictures there.
Yeah,
It is.
Yep, yeah. I think you're the only person we found who took a picture of these guys. It was a marching band. There's some video of them also. But this is you for sure.
Yeah.
So this is great picture of the rally in Memorial Stadium.
Yeah, it doesn't show that big screen, but yeah.
Jumbotron, yeah.
So the street just above that, when the labor march was an hour late getting started, and so I was on the phone with I think it was Humboldt State University. There was Danielle something. She was a talk show host, and I was talking to her, you know, doing this live show, and saying I don't know what's going on. You know, there's tens of thousands of people in the streets, and the whole thing is, you know, come to a halt. But you know, later when we look at those pictures, when me and Goodman broke off during that labor march, we went down to where the ministerials were being held, and I got pictures of that. And you might not know what it is unless, you know, I explain it.
Yeah.
And of course, Mike Evanson, he's there too.
Yeah. Like they're not able to get the conference going because people can't get in.
I think that's one of mine
This
there
is
too.
you,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah. So they called in the National Guard by the end of the day.
Yeah, and none of them had any name tags on.
Oh, really?
Yep. If you look close at all that, you won't find any police that had name tags.
So we wanted to kind of give this impression of all these protesters. So we've got our turtle costumes and the poncho and some of the protest signs. This is mostly from our collection, but a few things are loaned, including the 3 T-shirts. And there's yours right there.
Yeah. Well, see, this is let's see. That's on the back. I know that my friend John signed that on the back somewhere, and it says CNT rocks or something like that. And so he was the guy that, I mean, after the WTO, there was John Goodman, the cowboy, that worked on the contract, but this other John that signed this shirt, all 3 of us went down to Humboldt County, and he went up on that mountain too and helped mark that area.
Right.
And while I did the photography for it.
Cool. And then we got this photo of these drummers, and I heard from your friend, but I never heard from their person they were going to connect me to. So we don't have a quote from them here, but if we do get a hold of them, we could add something.
Let's see if maybe I recognize. Oh, that's the same picture.
This is Irv. Hi, Irv. This is Sora. You've been emailing with
Hi.
Sora.
Oh, yeah, there you are.
Hey, how's it going?
All right.
This looks great.
Yeah, we're getting in there. I mean, I'm really glad this is, it's it's there, and I mean it's a. I saw some of the um, WTO YouTube videos a long time later, and I saw some where you can see me walking through there, but like I was telling her earlier, this to me is like the period at the end of the sentence. See these blue ponchos coming up through there is a. I'm sure if I watched this long enough, I'd recognize. Yeah.
Chat with you about tomorrow. I've had some stuff come up and if you thought of anything.
Oh, there's our steelworker banner.
Yeah, we'll just be
Oh, that was my partner Joe that just went by.
filling in. Is Kelsey? Yeah. So I'll probably check in with her this side too as well. Okay. It was really lovely to meet you. I don't know if I'll be able to be here tomorrow, but thank you very much for all your contributions to this. This is
Oh yeah.
really fantastic.
Well, like all those negatives, I mean, I thought about that for quite a while, and I really didn't want to just, leave them to family or something like that. They really needed to go somewhere, and I wasn't sure where.
Yeah, we're
So-
super honored to have them.
Well, I'm sure that, many years down the road, they will be put to good use.
Oh yeah.
'Cause I mean, who knows, maybe history books or whatever.
Yeah, my hope is people, who are doing the work now too, young activists can come learn from this experience too and feel fired up and ready to fight the good fights that are to come.
Well, there was something that came out of that I wanted other people's opinion about. With all this fighting going on about genetically modified foods, and then it took something like 8 years or something like that before Washington State got it on the ballot. Do you want your food labeled? Well, I couldn't imagine anybody voting against that. And of course, the food companies, all the scare tactics are going to be so expensive, people are going to lose their jobs and stuff, and they voted it down. And that just didn't make any sense to me. And then right after that, I went up to the Safeway where I live, and I walked through the produce section, and here was all these organic foods. I mean, every onion had a yellow rubber band around it that said organic, and I thought, what is going on here?
Why can't we do? Yeah.
And
Exactly.
then I got thinking, I saw probably on 60 Minutes or something that was talking about these big box stores, a tiny fraction of 1% can mean millions of dollars. And there's only so much consuming going on, and they want every piece of that.
Yeah.
But when you get something like 45% of the people saying they want this, they couldn't ignore it. And I think that's probably what pushed that over the edge.
Yeah.
And it hasn't been on the ballot since, and maybe that's why.
Yeah, maybe voluntary. All right, well, I'll come and find you. Thank you. I think you got pictures of this guy.
Oh yeah,
He's very creepy.
he was kind of menacing looking. But even just like that one lady I was talking about earlier, there's the misconception about what was going on, and here after 25 years, I get to have a conversation with her, and now she has a better idea of what was really going on.
Yeah, for sure. So we have the police captain's uniform and his gas mask and some of the artifacts. People gathered these things. People collected this stuff from the streets during those days.
Yeah, the spring after this, I was down in Portland at that open air market down by the river, and these young people down there had had collected all the rubber bullets off the streets, and they made jewelry. They were selling necklaces and,
That's
and
awesome.
earrings and stuff.
What
And
a great idea.
I bought a necklace and brought it back for Our Lady in the payroll.
Nice. So this is this multiple screen installation. They're supposed to be synced so that you can see. This is the first use of tear gas at 6th and Union, like 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning on Thursday. Let's see if these other ones start out.
You know, we were told back then that the tear gas is a mutagen, and they wanted anybody who got it to have their names, you know. So in our union, they collected names of everybody who got gas there, just in case down the road there was some kind of a health issue. You know,
Let's see what's going on with these other.
it was really unnerving, you know, at nighttime, you know, trying to get away from downtown and come around a corner and see hundreds of those helmets reflecting off the street lights, you know, and you know you're not going to be able to reason with them.
Right.
But watch these, their uniforms. You're not going to see any name badges on any of them.
Here we go.
There was one picture I wish I would have taken, but I was just kind of really freaked out by it, and then I really wanted this cop to stop. But there was, when we got up by the ministerial building, there was some young guy sitting on the street and had his arms back, you know, holding himself up, and this cop was taking the front wheel of his motorcycle and running it back and forth across his ankles, and this kid had this, you know, he's just gritting his teeth in pain. And I should have shot that picture, but I walked up in front of that cop and I had my camera in my hand, and when he turned around and looked at me, you could tell by the look on his face, because he was actually smiling and laughing. And when he saw me standing there with that camera, it just took the smile off his face, and he stopped doing that. And I was glad that he stopped, but afterwards, you know, I thought I really should have taken that picture.
Yeah.
And there were some pictures that, you know, like that I was kind of shocked by what was going on. I was still pretty new at doing this kind of thing. And so I can talk about it later. But, you know, I'd always said before, you know, if anybody was asking me about photography, if you're not sure, take the picture.
Yeah.
And because you can always delete it later.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's a good point.
so it was. I wonder if this is that same guy I got a picture of in that church.
I think so. I think it is. I feel like when I saw yours, this is from the PI, but I think that is the same guy.
Because when we were down there, we were walking, I don't even know exactly where that was, but we heard those percussion grenades going off, and we could hear the sound bouncing around like a ping pong ball off the buildings. Mm-hmm. We got down there, and, you know, and they declared martial law, and I'm trying to get John out of there, but he's got to talk to everybody. And so right when we started leaving, we got to this intersection, and a crowd of riot police run across there and blocked the street off. And I went up and told him, I said, hey, we're parked right across the street. And he says, you're not going this way. So we had to go back to this intersection, and that's that one place where you had to see me wearing that green jacket. Mm-hmm. So we went north from there, then we looked towards the water at that next intersection, and there was just a big cloud of gas floating up the street, and people were running through that. So we went one more block up, and then we cut west. And when we went across that intersection, you know, we got gassed, and it messes up your vision. You can't breathe. And when we run through there, I heard some lady say that somebody behind us got shot in the face. And then the next day, I come across this guy at that church, and he was talking about being in the exact same place and getting shot in the face, so it had to have been him.
Yeah. But did you saw the footage that Howard Russell had from the woman who got hit by a canister in her forehead? Did you see that footage?
Oh yeah.
But she just looks like a zombie movie. Like you're like, oh my god, like you have a hole in your forehead, but she's still kind of walking around talking to people about it. That was kind of insane.
Well, in that same video, I have pictures of these two paramedics, but he had it on video. They were talking about the riot police taking their med kits away so that they couldn't treat people.
Right. Yeah.
And both of them were sounding kind of hoarse because they got it too.
Got tear gassed, yeah. So this is one of yours. So we were super excited because this Union Way sign is in our collection, and it was because the city renamed Pine Street Union Way for the day, because the labor marchers wanted to go on Union Street, but real Union Street was too close to the convention center, so they couldn't approve it. But they were like, oh, if we rename Pine Street Union Way, you can walk on that and it'll look like it's Union. And so this was like this accommodation that the police made for the marchers to be able to have their march the way they wanted to have it. But then everything kind of fell apart.
Well,
It didn't
that
work
one.
out that way.
Well, I think a lot of things just took on a life of their own. But
Yeah.
that one morning, when they had the people volunteering to be arrested in that parking lot north of Pike Street, we had that big steelworker banner. Me and John did. And they asked us to lead this crowd. And this crowd was storefront to storefront wide, a couple blocks long. And so there's one picture where you're looking up the street and there's virtually nothing there. And there was no cars or anything. It was bare, but behind us there was thousands of people. And
I know.
so when we started heading up there, we would see, like down at the end of the block, big crowds of riot police. So we started cutting across parking lots or anything to try to keep the people away. And then this merged with another group just as big. And it was just another one of those things. I mean, you don't know what's going to happen when you get up in the morning.
For sure. Definitely. Yep.
So I think that's one of my pictures too, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yep.
Wow. Well, I'm glad you guys really made good use of.
Oh yeah, your pictures are made so much of this work. That's great. So then this is the day after that first day where the mayor declared a
Martial law. And
no protest zone. People violated it on purpose, obviously. Got arrested. So there's hundreds of arrests at Westlake, and Howard got a bunch of video of that, which is great. We have some of it here. And then you were, I think, were you part of this one? There's this, there were labor guys who decided to violate the no protest zone on purpose, but they got caught up in the rush of tear gas and people fleeing, and they couldn't make a statement about it. They just got
that might have been the time when me and Goodman went up to the ministerial building where we weren't supposed to be, and then on that video, Leo George talking about they broke loose and went down where they're not supposed to be.
Yeah.
So I think you just had people on both sides, well, screw that. We're gonna go do what we're gonna do.
Yeah, and it's just declaring that now you've added this whole another reason for people to protest.
In Howard's video, there's a scene like this, and he put it in slow motion of that bus going by, and you can see the faces and stuff on there.
Yeah.
And that's another thing after that. That thing down on the docks, the speech is about the dumping of steel. Me and Jan came up on the north side of that, but my friend John, he was a little bit further south from there, and he said he saw a busload of people get gassed, and he said he saw them literally falling off the bus gagging.
Yeah. I heard that too, that people got tear gas on the buses. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of these military vehicles in place down there that I think a lot of people didn't see. You know, and this too, where Clinton arrives, in that article Don McIntosh wrote 5 years ago, he was talking about the president of the Longshoremen Union was talking about shutting down the entire West Coast. And I think that's what got Clinton out there. 'Cause he's like, don't do that. And I think that's where that agreement came from on the labor march, was to keep the labor people away from certain areas.
Yeah, yeah.
But they did it anyway.
But they did it, yeah, because once you can't tell people what to do, it turns out.
Yeah.
Well, he was going to be speaking at the conference anyway, so that was part of him coming into town is part of why the police were so adamant about clearing out the riot, whatever is going on.
We saw-
away from the hotel that he's staying in.
We saw a white limo racing through town, and they had to been doing like 70, and of course, all the streets are blocked off and stuff, and they must have had helicopters spotting and stuff, but they were just ripping through town, just like, so when we saw that, we thought that has to be him. There's no other limo that's going to go through downtown at that speed.
Right, yeah. And we talk a little bit here about the kind of inside the conference, like all this pressure from outside kind of helped the delegates from developing countries who didn't want this deal that the rich countries wanted to impose on them. The pressure from outside was able to support them to say no to the deal. So part of why the talks fell apart and they didn't get a new deal out of it is because these delegates from developing countries were refusing to sign it, and that's partly because there was this going on outside, all this pressure from outside.
There were so many different, I hate to say factions, but different things that were happening. I tried explaining, afterwards about what was happening with the anarchists, and some are for it and some are against, and people back home that never had been through any of that. I said, you can't call one person an anarchist and think you got it all covered, because
right.
I mean it's just a whole
There was so much going on.
whole spectrum of everything from retired school teachers to people who start fires.
Exactly. So all the people who got arrested were like refusing to give their names and clogging up the jail system. So there's this vigil outside the jail where they're kind of trying to figure out what to do to help people get out.
Yeah, I think in Howard's video, I think he knew one of the ladies.
Yeah, we used some of Howard's video here. It's great stuff.
So he had one video clip, and I wasn't sure if it was this one or not, but it was either her or him in the back seat, and they're videoing it as they're driving down through town and talking about making that deal to get the people out of jail.
Really, yeah. And I got a phone call from Dan Carlson, who is one of the lawyers in the car, and he was like, "Just don't use my name." Like, I was like, really? We didn't use that footage in here, just to be clear. But he gave me a little more background about some of the strategizing they were doing, because they had all these people out front who were like, "We're not leaving until you let them out," But then that was making the police nervous, so they had to negotiate all of that. And they're doing this whole people's mic thing where they're repeating the phrase so everyone can hear in the back,
Oh, right.
So that was kind of started here. So, and Occupy Wall Street kind of made that famous. But
I think they kind of I think they duplicated that in the movie Battle in Seattle, where they were doing the same thing, or having them repeat
I gotta watch that again. I haven't seen it in a long
I
time.
actually found it on YouTube for free.
Oh, nice. All right. That's
But I mean, way back then, when that came out, my grandkids were little, and that book I brought, I put the movie in and played it for a bit, and then I'd hit pause, and then I'd show them the pictures, in case all the kids all got to gather around, and because they're looking at my pictures and look at the screen, and we'd watch some more, and we did that through the whole movie, and I was kind of.
That's great. That's great. So then this last day, there's another kind of peaceful march that the labor guys organized, that the police condoned, and they had this whole, sort of successful day of protesting. And they people got released from jail, jubilation. I don't know if were you there for this? That people
No.
spelled out the word democracy in the street, which is such a cool thing. That we didn't get a very high res image of it, but it's such a cool thing. People were very moved by being part of that. Symbolically creating democracy with their bodies. It was like very, very symbolic. And then the delegates went home without a deal, and it was like that was.
Unfortunately,
victory.
I think, people who just pretty much work their 9-to-5s will, they will look at parts of this and think, well, they're just a bunch of radicals, that kind of a thing. But, it's like the same thing that happened with clear cutting of the redwoods in California. I heard that at work, people saying things like, yeah, well, if they had jobs, they wouldn't be out protesting, and being in California, they must be a bunch of dope smoking hippies. And I was like, well, no. I said, these are actually homeowners that are protesting because of all the runoff that comes off those mountains and clear cuts. It put like 20 feet of mud in those rivers, and then when it rains, they get 3 feet of water in their living rooms.
Yep.
That's
the
what they're
whole
protesting.
hillside slides down.
Oh
on
yeah,
the trail.
destroying homes and.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's very clear looking at the footage and the pictures. Like it is a huge range of people are involved in this, and I want us to figure out how to do that again. How to bring all these different people together, because it was so powerful, even though it was kind of chaotic.
So, did I send you that book, or did you already have that, the Newsweek one?
I think that's from our collection, but you probably had it too.
Yeah, I got it too.
Yeah, so they're talking about just like the
Oh, that's got a shipping label on it. Mine didn't. I just got mine at the store, I think.
yeah.
John Williams. In one of those too, it seems to me like there was a perfect picture of some guy climbing out of the Radio Shack store after they broke the window, and I think he had like a stereo or something in his hands.
Yeah. Like
course-
that's what it was about.
Yeah, well, not only that, but it's broadcast over the whole country, what I mean? Yeah, how do you say, well, that wasn't me. And this is something else too that I hope that they cover tomorrow, because I really don't know where the WTO is today.
Yeah.
And like Leo Gerard, several years after the WTO, he took over for Dave, which took over for the Steelworkers International. And I think there was some kind of a trade thing going on between Boeing and Airbus, and they were asking him about it. And he was like, well, we'll just wait and see what the WTO says. And I thought, what? Where? I mean, we go to Seattle and do all this, and now we're going to wait for them to make a decision. What happened, And so I've been out of the loop quite a bit.
It seems like they're just not doing much nowadays.
Certificate of agitation.
So people so those arrests in Westlake, they were illegal, and so there was a whole lawsuit for the police department, and people pooled their settlement money that they got and handed it on to organizations that were continuing to do anti-globalization work. So this is one of the organizations, the Community Alliance for Global Justice, got a grant from this group of people who had pooled their settlement money from being arrested. So.
Well, that's another thing I wondered about too. Is I knew the fights were going on prior, but this being global news for that week, how much inertia did that create, and how many new groups came out of that, and how many young people today have joined these new groups and don't even know where it came from.
Yeah. This group definitely came out of the WTO, and many, there's a lot of them. Yeah, people were very transformed by that experience, and kind of saw that something else is possible from like the marching through what everyone tells you have to do. And like so many people have become lifelong activists or otherwise engaged in this kind of work, whether they're like out on the street protesting. There's other ways people are working on these issues because of their experience in Seattle in 1989.
Well, you know, one of the things is too, like, it wasn't just the WTO, but it was a number of other things that we got involved in. And when I'd go home, I'd start, you know, telling people about, you know, what we saw and what we had to deal with. And they're like, here in this country? You know, usually you hear something like that that's happening in some third world country, but that's happening here. And, you know, after the corporate campaign started, I wandered around the country for about a month and then finally came home on my own, and then I took off again. And I didn't take pictures of the moms and kids just out of respect, but when I was heading to Portland, I stopped in Tri-Cities, and these Hispanic people working in a slaughterhouse were on strike. And so I went there. And being in the Tri-Cities, you know, it's really desert-like, you know. So I stopped, and in this ditch, where these kids were just filthy, they were playing, and right next to it, this migrant worker, this mom with a dark skin, you can tell she'd been out in the sun a lot by the deep wrinkles and stuff, and she's making tortillas in this hibachi, right next to these kids that are just filthy, playing in the dirt, and I really wanted to take that picture. But I thought, I can't. But what I did do is I contacted our hall and I says, you know, I mean, we had a food bank for our people. And I said, we need to get some people here and help these people. And even the president, that local, he said, I don't know what to do. He'd never been anything like that. And before our people could get there, it only took a week to starve them out. And then they got, you know, a bad contract. I can't remember what it was, but, you know, they ended up getting screwed anyway. And so, you know, when you stand out there and you look at that, and the same thing that happened over in Greeley, Colorado, where the United Food and Commercial Workers, here was this older guy and this lady, they worked in this place where they processed beef, and they had a union at one time. It got kicked out. They fought for like 8 years to get those jobs back, and I'm not kidding. I never saw the stockyards, but 20 miles from around there, the ammonia smell so strong it made your sinuses just raw. Those people went through those kind of fights to get that back, and they finally did. And so you're like, you know, you think you got a bad day, and that's kind of what I was thinking about with when I wandered around the country that first month on my own, and there wasn't any greener grass. It was different. It was different grass, but this idea of going somewhere else and finding greener grass, I mean, that really pretty much went out the window. And we weren't the only ones, and that was really a learning experience for me too. You know, I was just left home with a tank of gas and a heart full of anger and revenge, and I wanted to get some payback to this corporate raider, because I mean, I'd been in 3 unions, 5 strikes, and a lockout, and I'd had enough. And the further I went and the more thousands of miles that clicked off, I really started realizing that there's something a lot more important here than my own personal revenge.
Yeah.
But that's what got me out there.
Like you're saying, like being, you know, being in solidarity with other people who are in the same fight, but you can't see them if you're not. I mean, I feel like the role you played of going around the country and around the region, connecting people and their different stories, I feel like that is huge.
The road warriors are still there, you know, and this friend of mine, Joel, he's still one of them. He's in his mid-70s.
Nice.
And he really wants to see this video, and I want to take pictures of this and text them to him. And somewhere along the line, you know, I think it would be cool if you guys talked with him. You know, I mean, being that CF&I steel mill, that's where the Ludlow massacre happened 100 years ago. You know, with all those women and kids. So he spent over 40 years working at that mill. 7 years on the longest lockout in this country, and then the union made a unconditional offer to return back to work. So instead of kicking all the scabs out, they started calling the steelworkers back one at a time. So could you imagine being in a whole mill full of scabs in this situation? And then the local paper even published an article that was called King of the Scabs, and here was this guy that was really proud of being the, and so he said, we don't call ourselves scabs, we call ourselves scars, because scabs are temporary. And to make it even worse. So eventually, it ended. They got their back pay and stuff, and of course Joel had to work with some of these scabs and stuff. But in the 40 years he worked there, there was something like 27 people were killed on the job, and then 3 more since he retired. And the icing on the cake is that steel mill is no longer CF&I. It's called Everaz, and it's owned by one of Putin's oligarchs.
Wow.
And then Lauren Boebert was their representative.
That's right.
So,
That's right.
so I just really did not like Kathy McMorris. So that so we were always comparing notes between Boebert and Morris, and I think Boebert won that one. Kathy would say things like, we're talking about the dams and stuff. Well, be realistic about it. I mean, you might not want to tear the dams out, but it did a lot of damage to the salmon population. But she said things like, those dams are nearly invisible to those fish. Oh yeah. Well, I'm like, how does she know that? Here's a salmon swimming upstream. Wow, look at those gazillion tons of concrete and steel. That's almost invisible.
God, that's crazy.
Yeah, well, that's the kind of thing she did to get under my skin. Well, of course, a lot of other people's too. So when they didn't like her, they didn't just dislike her; they just absolutely hated her guts. And so now she's gone.
So this we were showing kind of the legacy of the protest techniques. That's May Day in Seattle, Occupy, and Black Lives Matter. And then kind of the police tactics, how they've evolved over the years.
Yeah, they use the bicycles for to make fences and.
Yeah, push people. Yeah, my daughter got injured by one of these protests. And these umbrellas, I feel like that's a Hong Kong thing somehow. People got learning from the Hong Kong protesters about umbrellas. So then we have. That's pretty much it. We have this space where people can share their own feelings. No one's shared yet because it's only been open for half an hour. But we're interested to see what people write up here about all of it. And then at the very end, we have just a few, this local artist who paints. He does a lot of paintings of, you're on here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And Howard too, he's up there.
Well, I'm definitely going to take a picture of that and send it to Howard.
And you know what I was thinking? So the Labor Archives of Washington, do you know them?
No.
Like that's how we got a hold of you, is because they had a labor newsletter that had your turtle picture in it.
Northwest Labor Press.
Exactly, yeah. So Connor Casey is the archivist there, and we worked pretty closely with him on this exhibit, and so that's where we got some of the stuff that we have displayed. But I was thinking, because I think I told you, we really focus on Seattle and King County, but a lot of the other material that you have that is about the broader, the broader movement, they might be interested in collecting that stuff too. So
yeah, that's kind of what I thought about.
You.
We could set up a camera at the screen and go through those pictures so they know where those are. And I want to point out too in those WTO pictures where it was down there at the ministerial buildings. And see, when we first got down there was some guy, I think we met him in California, he was into the puppets and stuff. He said, come this way. So there's two buildings there. So we went out around one of them and came down these stairs behind the police. And when they saw that, they really did not like that. So they called in a bunch, and so I got a picture of, you know, this whole row of police through there, and there were a few people from that were going into the meetings that, you know, wearing their long, you know, dress, rain coats and ties and stuff. You know, you could tell they were delegates, and a few of them trickled through the line and stuff, you know, and they didn't get molested or anything. But we, right after we left, we didn't get to the end of the block, and John's phone rang, and he said right after we left, they started gassing people. So, I mean, I saw that, you know, in other situations. So, you know, the younger protesters, they knew that, you know, the police kind of skirted around being abusive to organized labor, because,
Right.
I mean, that's, and,
Yeah.
but, you know, so when we showed up, they were really grateful, and then they'd beg us to not leave, but we couldn't stay forever.
Right. Yeah. And I think, you know, there were a lot of labor people who got gassed, and that was shocking to them for sure. So this is this local painter, and he paints a lot of different things, and he sent us these. It's just like a total coincidence. He sent them in like a month before we were finalizing the content for the exhibit. So when we saw we had this space at the end of the show, we thought we'd include him.
That one picture on the other side over there where it said, "This is Floyd." Floyd Pledger, he was an electrician out at where I worked. And he spent a week in jail with a Desert Rat. And Desert Rat, he wrote some songs about the WTO and stuff, but then we also put up our picket lines down at the port of Tacoma, and that one day we shut down the entire port. But Desert Rat was there, and Floyd, and so he wrote and produced a song called Bullfrog, because Floyd's got this kind of a raspy voice and stuff, and so I should make sure you get a copy of that too, because I have this all on my website, but not all of it is, you know, available to the public.
Yeah, I loved that Desert Rat stuff you sent me. That was great.
Well, you know, and there's
Is he the one who did the thing about, like, I love the cops, I love
Yeah.
the cops? Yeah, that's right. That
the
was
cop
hilarious.
song. Yeah. Well, you know, he did some that were really, really sexually graphic and stuff. And one time, we had a rally where the longshoremen assisted us, and we put up our picket lines or our just demonstration in front of Kaiser's Gate at the industrial park at Tacoma. And so they had a stage set up there and loudspeaker stuff, and Desert Rat got up there and started singing these songs. Well, you know, Kaiser's got this big tall gate, and it's almost like a fort where they got a walkway on the back side of it, and the guards are up there wearing, you know, those baseball military hats and the black uniforms and stuff. And I'm watching this guard up there, and Desert Rat starts singing some of these sexually explicit songs and stuff. And you can see the cop, he's biting his lip, and he's trying to put his head down and stuff, and he's trying to keep a straight face, but he can't. But yeah.
Great. Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, yeah, this is the end of the show, but if you want to go back through and look at more stuff more closely, or do you want to take a little break, or
Well,
what would be good to
do you want to go down there and start looking through some of these pictures? Okay. Well, so we got over an hour.
Oh boy.